the Colorado town where mushrooms take over. There is a town in Colorado where, for a few days every August, the normal rules seem to loosen. People walk down Main Street wearing enormous red caps. Chanterelles become crowns. Amanitas turn into dresses. There are mushroom hats, mushroom staffs, mushroom wings, mushroom dinners, mushroom scientists, mushroom hunters, and people who have traveled across the country to spend several days talking about fungi. Then the parade begins. Drums roll through a Victorian mining town trapped inside a wall of mountains. Costumed crowds move between brick buildings once paid for by fortunes pulled out of the rock. Above them rise the San Juan Mountains. Below them, hidden in soil, roots, and rotting wood, another world spreads in threads too thin to see. This is the Telluride Mushroom Festival, and the strangest thing about it is that the costumes may be the least interesting part. Because Telluride is a town whose entire history has been shaped by things hidden beneath the surface. In the 19th century, people came here looking for silver and gold. They blasted tunnels into mountains, built mills and railroads, risked their lives underground, and created an entire city around one question: what valuable thing is buried beneath us? Today, people return to the same valley and ask almost the opposite question: what is living beneath us, and what happens if we leave it there? That difference is the real story of Telluride. A town that once measured the mountain by what could be extracted from it, now hosts one of America's oldest and strangest celebrations of an underground biological kingdom, whose value comes largely from what it does while remaining hidden. So this is not simply a film about people who love mushrooms. It is about a Colorado town that spent one era digging underground for wealth, nearly disappeared when that wealth faded, reinvented itself, and eventually became the place where thousands gather to celebrate a completely different kind of underground treasure. Because in Telluride, the underground still runs the show. To understand why a mushroom festival belongs here, first look at the place. Telluride sits in southwestern Colorado, deep in the San Juan Mountains, at roughly 8,750 feet above sea level. The town lies at the end of a box canyon. Drive into Telluride and eventually the road seems to run out of options. Mountains rise sharply around the valley. Cliffs close the view. Waterfalls drop from high basins. Peaks surround the streets so completely that the town can feel less like a settlement beside mountains than something placed inside them. In winter, snow buries the slopes. In summer, those same mountains turn green. Aspen leaves flicker above trails. Spruce and fir shade the forest floor. Moisture gathers in protected valleys. Wildflowers fill open meadows. And somewhere beneath all of it, fungi are working. Then, metal changed everything. By the mid-1870s, fortune seekers were entering the San Juans in growing numbers, following reports of silver and gold. The Sheridan mine became one of the early major local claims. A camp appeared in the valley below. The settlement was originally called Columbia. In 1878, it became the town of Telluride. Then came the railroad. In 1890, rail service reached this isolated mountain settlement and changed the economics of the valley. Heavy equipment could move in, or could move out. Food, workers, timber, supplies, and capital could reach a town that geography had tried very hard to isolate. Telluride exploded into a mining center. Its population climbed to around 5,000 people. Miners drilled into hard rock by hand and machine. Explosives opened veins through stone. Men worked underground in darkness, surrounded by dust, unstable rock, machinery, and water. The mountain was valuable because of what could be removed from it: silver, gold, lead, zinc. Everything pointed downward. And then the economy that had created Telluride began to collapse. The silver crash of 1893 hit mining communities across the West. Telluride survived longer than many, but the great boom could not last forever. During the decades that followed, mining declined, workers left, businesses closed. Telluride's population fell from thousands to hundreds. For much of the 20th century, the place existed in an uncomfortable space between Boomtown and Ghost Town. The mountains were still there, the tunnels were still there, but the economic reason for the town's existence was disappearing. Then Telluride discovered another kind of gold. This time, it was white, snow. The Telluride ski resort opened in 1972, and almost immediately, the relationship between the town and its mountains began changing. The old economy had depended on going inside the mountain. The new economy depended on people wanting to experience its surface. Skiers arrived, new residents arrived, visitors arrived. And with them came something else Telluride would become famous for: festivals, bluegrass, film, music, art, food. Telluride gradually became a festival town, a place where cultural gatherings became part of the identity and economy that replaced mining. Then, in 1981, something particularly strange arrived: mushrooms. The Telluride Mushroom Festival did not begin simply because someone thought mushrooms would look funny on a poster. Its roots go back to an earlier mushroom conference in Aspen in the 1970s, where physicians and mushroom experts discussed identification, poisoning, and other areas of mycology. Dr. Emanuel "Manny" Salzman later moved the gathering to Telluride. Around him formed a group of people whose names would become important in American mushroom culture: Gary Linkoff, Andrew Weil, Paul Stamets, Joanne Salzman, Art Goodtimes, and others. In 1981, the Telluride Mushroom Festival was born. What began as an unusual gathering survived long enough to become something much larger. The festival now brings together mycologists, researchers, foragers, artists, cultivators, cooks, and people interested in psychedelic science and policy. More than 4 decades later, they are still coming. In 2026, the festival runs from August 12th through August 16th. But why here? Why should one of America's best-known mushroom gatherings happen in an old mining town nearly 9,000 feet above sea level? The answer is under the forest. When most people say mushroom, they are describing only a tiny part of the thing. The mushroom we see above ground is often a reproductive structure. Think of an apple on an apple tree. The apple is visible, temporary, but nobody would point at an apple and say, "That is the entire apple tree." A mushroom is similar. The cap and stem may appear for a few days and disappear. The larger fungal organism can remain hidden. Microscopic filaments called hyphae spread through soil, wood, and other material. Large collections of these filaments form what we call mycelium. So when you see a mushroom pushing through a Colorado forest floor, you may be seeing an organism that was already there finally become visible. That changes everything. Because beneath the forest, fungi are doing jobs that are easy to ignore precisely because they are hidden. Some fungi are decomposers. A tree falls. To us, it is dead. To fungi, it is material. Fungi and other decomposers help break complex organic matter apart, returning nutrients to circulation through ecosystems. Without decomposition, nutrients remain trapped and biological cycles slow. Other fungi form close relationships with living plants. These are mycorrhizal associations. Fungal filaments interact with plant roots and can expand the volume of soil from which a plant obtains water and mineral nutrients. The plant, in return, supplies the fungus with carbon compounds made through photosynthesis. The exchange is not a fairy tale. The fungus is not helping the tree because it is kind. The tree is not feeding the fungus because forests believe in cooperation. It is biology. Two very different organisms can survive partly because each possesses something the other can use. Once you stop seeing mushrooms as strange umbrellas that appear after rain, the forest changes. A tree is no longer only a tree. A fallen log is not simply dead wood. Soil is not simply dirt. And a mushroom is no longer decoration. It is evidence. Something underground has reached the surface. And during the festival, groups leave Telluride and head into the mountains on guided forays. At first, people usually look too far ahead. The mountains are enormous. There are cliffs, peaks, waterfalls, and alpine basins everywhere. But mushroom hunting forces your eyes downward. The group slows. Someone stops beside a spruce. Another person kneels beside a log. Then everyone gathers around something that, from 5 meters away, you might never have noticed. A cap, a cluster, a strange shape emerging through wet soil. Identification can also become surprisingly serious. A mushroom cannot safely be identified just because it is brown or red, or because it resembles a photograph found online. Experts may examine the cap, stem, gills, or pores, bruising, spores, substrate, nearby trees, and other characteristics. Some edible mushrooms have dangerous lookalikes. Some toxic species can cause severe poisonings. So the strange mix of joy and caution makes sense. Humans have an unusually complicated relationship with fungi. We eat and ferment with them. Compounds discovered in fungi transformed medicine. Other fungi destroy crops, infect animals, poison people, or produce molecules that dramatically alter human perception. Food, medicine, poison, partner, parasite, recycler, drug. One kingdom can play all of those roles, which is why Telluride refuses to keep mushrooms inside one category. Walk through the festival, and the subject changes from hour to hour. There are lectures, identification sessions, cooking events, cultivation workshops, field trips, music, poetry, ecology, psychedelic research, mushroom art, professional mycologists, veteran foragers, people who learned the word mycology last month. And eventually, all of those worlds collide in the most visible part of the festival, the mushroom parade. For most of the year, Telluride's main street looks like an unusually well-preserved western mining town. Historic brick buildings sit beneath mountains so large they seem almost artificial. Then Mushroom Weekend arrives, and the fungi walk. Red and white caps move between Victorian storefronts. Giant chanterelles appear above the crowd. People become puffballs. Others turn themselves into species that may or may not exist anywhere outside their imagination. There are mushroom crowns, gills, spores, capes, and entire fungal ecosystems made from fabric, cardboard, and paint. And there is a reason this parade became famous. It takes something normally hidden beneath a forest and makes it impossible not to see. And this year, the festival was decorated by masterpieces like these. Because science alone rarely creates a ritual. Facts alone rarely build a community. You can attend a lecture about mycorrhizal and forget half the terminology by next week. It is harder to forget walking down Main Street beside a human-sized Amanita while drums echo between the mountains. Telluride turned knowledge into memory, and then it turned memory into identity. The festival did something else unusual very early. It allowed conversations about psychedelic mushrooms to exist beside traditional mycology. That distinction matters. Universities and medical institutions again began studying psilocybin and related compounds under controlled conditions. Researchers have investigated possible applications involving depression, addiction, end-of-life distress, and other psychiatric conditions. The important word is investigated. Promising findings are not proof that one compound is a cure for every mental health problem. Clinical treatment under controlled conditions is also very different from unsupervised recreational use. But something has clearly changed. A topic pushed toward the margins for decades is back inside laboratories, medical journals, and legislation. And Colorado has become one of the center points of that change. In 2022, Colorado voters approved Proposition 122, the Natural Medicine Health Act. Since then, the state has created and continued adjusting a regulated framework around natural medicine, including psilocybin-related services. That regulatory landscape is still developing in 2026, so Telluride now occupies a strange historical position. A mushroom festival that once seemed deeply countercultural is taking place in a state where part of that conversation has moved into formal regulation. What was fringe became policy. But reducing the festival to psychedelic mushrooms would completely miss why it survived. Because eventually, everyone goes back outside, back to the forest, back to identification, back to ecology, back to the organisms themselves. A mushroom hunter has to learn something most modern life teaches us to ignore: context. A mushroom may appear in one place this year and not return the next. Rain matters, temperature matters, elevation matters, tree species matter, soil matters, dead wood matters. Finding the mushroom means reading the conditions that made the mushroom possible, and that creates a different way of looking at nature. Instead of asking, "Where is the thing I want?" you begin asking, "What relationships would allow that thing to exist here?" That is a much bigger question. And it leads directly into one of the most popular and most oversimplified ideas in modern fungal culture, the so-called wood wide web. The phrase is irresistible. Trees connected beneath the ground, fungal networks linking roots, resources moving through the system. It sounds like a forest version of the internet. Popular culture sometimes pushes the metaphor much further than the science allows. Trees are not proven to be consciously sending messages to friends. A forest is not a democratic society. Fungi are not benevolent fiber optic cables working for trees. The actual biology is messier and better. Mycorrhizal fungi can interact with plant roots, transport nutrients, and participate in exchanges involving carbon and minerals. Different fungi and plants behave differently. Conditions change. Partnership can exist beside competition. Nature does not need human intentions to be complicated. The amazing fact is that an enormous amount of what keeps a forest functioning can happen in relationships we almost never see. And suddenly, Telluride's history begins to look different. For generations, the most important underground network in this valley was the one humans built. Mine tunnels, shafts, ore passages, tramways, maps of veins running through rock. The underground was an industrial diagram. A miner looked at a mountain and asked, "What can we remove?" The Mushroom Festival asks visitors to look in the same direction, downward, with almost the opposite instinct. What if the valuable thing underground is valuable because it stays underground? What if removing it is not the point? What if the network matters because of the relationships it maintains? That contrast is what makes Telluride more than a beautiful backdrop. The town itself is part of the story. It knows what extraction looks like, and it knows what happens when an economy built around one resource can no longer depend on that resource. When mining declined, Telluride nearly declined with it. Then skiing arrived. Then festivals. Then cultural tourism. Each era looked at the same mountains and discovered a different kind of value. The 19th century saw ore. The 20th century saw snow. The festival era saw landscape, culture, and experience. And Mushroom Weekend asks people to notice something even smaller: the hidden systems that make the visible landscape possible. For 5 days, a town that normally belongs to many identities becomes dominated by one. Lectures fill rooms. People return from forests carrying specimens. Strangers talk because one of them is holding something bizarre. The scientist from the morning presentation appears later in line for coffee. Someone dressed like a poisonous mushroom turns out to have spent 20 years studying mushrooms professionally. For several days, a tiny mountain town contains an unusually high concentration of people obsessed with one kingdom of life. The festival organizers call it a reunion. That may be more accurate than calling it a convention. There is another reason mushrooms work particularly well as the center of a festival. They resist certainty. Humans like categories: useful or useless, edible or poisonous, plant or animal, medicine or drug, living or dead. Fungi keep crossing those boundaries. That makes fungi unusually good symbols for something Telluride already understands. The surface does not tell you the whole story. The polished ski town does not tell you about the dangerous mining economy beneath its history. The beautiful forest does not show the fungal processes beneath the soil. The parade does not show the serious science behind many of the people walking in it. The mushroom does not show you the mycelium. Everything interesting seems to have another layer underneath. And this is where the festival becomes bigger than mushrooms. Some came for taxonomy, food, ecology, psychedelic research, or art. Others simply saw photographs of the parade and thought it looked completely insane. They do not necessarily agree with one another. They do not even necessarily mean the same thing when they say mushrooms are important. That matters, because the easiest version of this story would turn fungi into magic. It would tell you that mushrooms connect everything, heal everything, save forests, save mines, and probably save civilization. That would make a fantastic headline. It would also be bad science. Fungi do not need exaggeration. Their real biology is strange enough. A fungal network does not need to be a magical underground internet to influence a forest. A mushroom compound does not have to cure every disease for medical research to matter. A decomposer does not need consciousness to turn death back into nutrients. And a festival does not have to prove that fungi will save the planet to change how people look at the planet. Telluride's real achievement may be simpler. It makes people notice. When you leave the festival, the visual spectacle disappears first. The giant mushroom caps go back into cars. The costumes come apart. The drums stop. Main Street becomes Main Street again. Visitors leave the box canyon. But the subject of the festival does not leave. Somewhere above town, beneath spruce and fir, hyphae are still moving through soil. Fungi are still decomposing dead material. Roots are still interacting with mycorrhizal partners. Mushrooms are fruiting and collapsing according to moisture, temperature, and biology, completely indifferent to the human calendar. But people leave seeing something they did not see before. A bracket fungus on a dead trunk, tiny caps hidden in grass, a puffball beside a trail, white fungal threads inside decomposing wood, and almost automatically, one question follows. What is underneath it? That question connects every era of Telluride. The miners asked it, geologists ask it, ecologists ask it, mushroom hunters ask it. Telluride has spent almost a century and a half surviving on different answers. At first, the answer was silver and gold. Then the mountain itself became valuable through skiing and tourism. Then the town discovered that culture could be an economy too. Music, film, festivals. And now, for a few days each August, Telluride celebrates something whose value is much harder to put into a bank: relationship. Fungus and root, decomposer and dead tree, forest and soil, town and landscape, festival and community. None exists completely alone. And maybe that is why the costume parade is not as silly as it looks. For one afternoon, humans do something fungi have been doing for millions of years. They become visible. They emerge. They spread through the town. Then they disappear again. By Monday, Telluride will once again look like a beautiful former mining town in the Colorado mountains. The red caps will be gone. The giant chanterelles will be gone. The music will be gone. But underneath the forest, almost nothing will have changed. The fungi will still be there. Telluride's first great boom taught people to look beneath the mountain for something they could take. Its strangest modern festival teaches almost the reverse lesson. Sometimes the most valuable thing beneath your feet is valuable precisely because you do not remove it. You learn what it is, you understand what it does, and you leave enough of the system intact for it to keep working after you are gone. That is a very different idea of wealth. And perhaps it could only have emerged so clearly in a town that has already lived through the other kind. Telluride was built by digging into the mountain. It survived by learning to see the mountain differently. And once every August, when people dressed as mushrooms take over Main Street, the transformation becomes visible. A mining town celebrates Mycelium. A place built around extraction celebrates connection. And thousands of people travel into a canyon surrounded by some of the largest scenery in America, only to discover that the most important world may be the one beneath their shoes.